Hello, welcome to CFA Level 2. This is Nick at Quartic. We're partway through our asset valuation. We're doing 10 topics in 10 weeks. We have covered equity and fixed income on the asset valuation. We're now going to look at derivatives. Derivatives, we have just 2 readings. It's 5 to 10%, so a smaller topic area, 6 to 12 questions in your exam. Within derivatives, everything we know about derivatives is broken down into 2 readings. First of all, forward commitment, pricing and valuation of forward commitment. We look at forwards, futures, and swaps within this reading. Now, you saw some of this at level 1. We even looked at level 1 at some of the ideas of valuation, including some of the algebra. Now we're actually going to be applying it, doing lots of calculations in lots of different scenarios. There's a lot of logic to this. Many candidates really fear derivatives. It shouldn't be feared. It's a really interesting area. It relies on all the other areas. So, for example, if we're doing equity derivatives, how do the equities work? What happens with dividends? What about an equity index which pays potentially thousands of dividends over the year? So we look at all these different things and we see how the forwards and futures calculations give us logical answers. In fact, a lot of these calculations, if you listen to us carefully, you can do in your head. It is a very straightforward logic, even though some of the calculations do get a bit much, especially when it comes to things like forward rate agreements and interest rate instruments. Swaps, we look at the pricing and valuing of swaps. Once again, there are a lot of complexities involved, but once you've understood the basic mechanical approach, you'll find that these can produce some easy exam questions. Moving into the second reading, contingent claims. This is basically options, although we see various other instruments in there as well. We focus on options. We see the binomial model for the second time. You saw it for interest rates. This is an asset valuation tree. The binomial model here is where we are not interest rate dependent. It's actually probably rather easier to apply than the interest rate tree we've already seen. And we apply that to valuing different types of option, calls and puts that are exercisable on different dates, and you'll see the application there. We move from the binomial tree into Black-Scholes-Merton, and the algebra here can be a little bit hair-raising, but if you follow our advice, there's not that much you need to know. You need to understand it, but the actual learning of algebra is pretty minimal. Now, we're going to see different applications of Black-Scholes-Merton and the Black model, 6 different applications, and what you will realize by the end, or maybe before the end, is that they look almost identical in nature. You'll also realize that if we're applying Black-Scholes-Merton to shares, we can do the calculation, hopefully with a bit of practice, quite easily, and then all the other models, we are mostly analyzing the model rather than actually doing calculations. We then look at other areas, other bits of analysis of options such as the Greeks, and by the end of this reading, you will have had a pretty broad understanding of how these contingent claims work.